Hello class, my name is Nicholas McCary and today we're going to go into .NET Core MVC using Visual Studio. Okay, so today I am going to open up Visual Studio. I have Visual Studio 2019 Community installed. And when you pull it up, it brings up the screen here where you can open or create a project. So I'm going to create a project. And you have to make sure you have ASP.NET Core installed when you install the community. If not, you may have to go back and reinstall it. So I'm going to select ASP.NET Core Web Application here. And I'm going to call my project Technologies. I'm going to hit Create. And from here, make sure you select Web Application Model View Controller, MVC. It's going to scaffold out everything, create all the basic structure that you need. Comes up, gives you a nice little page here. I'm just going to close that. You know you have MVC created correctly because you'll notice that you'll see a Model View and Controller folders here. So the way it works is MVC separates out different concerns. So your views is what is showed on the client's browser. So it would be like the HTML and CSS. It also has some Razor syntax in there, which we'll get into a little bit. Your model is like your business layer or your data layer as well. So it may have like your data coming from the database, or you may create a model class. And your controller handles between the model and the view, passing data back and forth between them. Okay? So an MVC naming convention is very important. You'll notice my home controller, home, and then followed by controller. So that means I need to have a home folder here under views. And within it, I have this index page, for example. So that means in my home controller, I have to have a action result called index that matches up with that index page here. If I change that to 1, it'll crash unless I change my view home index to index 1 as well. Now MVC is using RESTful services, so by default, this would just be an HTTP GET. But I don't define it there because it knows by default that it's getting that page. It's returning the view, which is right here. Okay. You also use mostly HTTP post, but there's also a put and a delete. Okay, so if I actually just look at this page here, this index, you'll notice this is regular HTML for the most part. Wherever you see this @ symbol, that's the Razor syntax. That means you can inject code into this page. So for example, you could do an @ for each loop and populate a table or pass property values from your classes into this page. You'll notice that it's using Bootstrap, but there is no HTML or body tag up here. That's because it's being used under the shared folder, which is under layout. And this is your doc type HTML, your HTML, and in the head, you'll see your reference to Bootstrap here. Okay. And so this is good because you can reuse the header and footer, which oftentimes contains navigation or a footer that you want on all pages. In this case, we have like a nav bar, and then below it, where it says @render body, that's where that view index is being injected right here. And below it, you'll see like a footer. Okay. So if I go under to my index HTML and I just run this, page loads up, you have a nice little Bootstrap website here. Okay. So let's pass that Bootstrap web page a model class. Okay, so I'm going to go into models and right click and do add new item. And I'm going to add a class, and I'm just going to call it technology. Now you want to make sure that you don't name any of your classes the same as, for example, your namespace here where you created the project called technology. So I wouldn't want to call this technologies like this, because then there'll be conflicts between the names. Naming is very critical in MVC, but mostly in other languages as well. So I'm going to call it technology. Creates a nice class here under my namespace technologies models, which is the actual project name there, followed by models, which is here. So that's the namespace. Inside my public class, I want to do public because I want to use it in the controllers. If I made this private, you could only use it within this class. So I'm going to do public, and I'm going to call this tech name. And you can see it's already red because you need to do public, the data type. So I'm going to do string, and then afterwards I'm going to do get and set. That means I can get this name, this property, or set it. And I'm going to do public int tech year. I'm going to do public string tech importance. And I'm going to do a get and a set. Okay. Now if I save that, now I can use it in my controller. So I'm going to go to my home controllers. And up here in the using part, I need to make sure that namespace is there for the models, which it's added already. But yours may not if you're using an older version of Visual Studio. Okay. So under my index, I'm going to say, I'm going to actually use that class, technology, space, and then I'm going to come up with a name for it. So I'm just going to call it lowercase tech equals new technology. So I'm instantiating it there. And now I can actually use those property values, actually set those property values. So I'm going to do tech, the variable name, and now I'm going to just do, let's say, the iPhone, tech year, and since that is a integer, I don't put it in double quotes. And tech importance. So I actually just created a variable for that model class, gave it some property values, and now I'm going to pass that view that variable tech. And at that point, now if I go into my, I'm going to make sure I save everything first. And if I go into my home index page here, I can actually now use it. And the first thing I need to do is that home controller passes it onto the view. So the view needs to know about it, what is being passed. So I'm going to do @model space, and I'm going to reference technologies, that namespace, the models, and that actual class right there. It may show red at first and then it may disappear. That's fine. At that point, I'm just going to create a nice little div here to display it properly. I'm going to do a well, which is a Bootstrap class. I'm going to do text center, give it H2. Do info. So I just choose some bootstrap classes so it'll display nicely. And now to reference that actual model, I'm going to do add model uppercase, period. And now I can do like technology name, like that. And I can even give it a nice little label in front of it. Oh, sorry about that. I'm used to my Mac. Cut that, paste that here. And now I'm going to save this. And now the home controller is going to pass that tech, which is technology, onto the index. And it defined it at the top here so it knows what it's being passed. And now at that point I can use that anywhere on this Razor page here. Okay, so now if I run it, you'll see it right there at the top, technology name and iPhone. Okay. So MVC is a really good technology just to start with. It's not too bad. And you just have to practice from here and build upon it.